Okay, it's that time a lot of you have been waiting for. Time to tune for speed density. Stick around. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Goat Rope Garage, and I believe this is video 4 in the tuning series. If you haven't caught up so far, hit the link up in the corner. That'll take you back to the first one that goes over the basics. This one is all about speed density, volumetric efficiency, dynamic airflow. They're all kind of the same thing. So we've already done mass airflow sensor tuning. This is whenever we get into speed density, where we're looking at manifold air pressure and the intake temperature. And we're going to be using a two-dimensional graph as opposed to a linear fuel curve like the Maf signal was. The nice thing about speed density is if it's done right, you can actually get rid of your Maf sensor. And so if you're running a higher boost application where you're exceeding that thing even though you've upsized your intake pipe or your charge pipe, this gives you some options. Something to be aware of though, if you do go that route, make sure that your IAT, your intake air temp sensor, is not a part of your Maf. It is on mine. I've got a harness that breaks it out, lets you use an external sensor. And the reason I have that is because I've got methanol injection on there, and I inject between the Maf and the intake air temp sensor because I want to see that temperature change because it affects your speed density tune. So if you are going Maf-less, make sure that if you need to, you get a breakout harness that allows you to run an external IAT. They're out there. Some of you may not need them though, but just something to think about if you are going Maf-less, because eventually that thing's going to go Maf-less. That's kind of step 2 after this step, but right now we're focused on speed density. Big thing about speed density is you've got a table. It's a table that's based on RPM and usually cylinder air mass, and you're going to be kind of in this area for the most part whenever you're tuning this. Whenever we set up our histogram and you start seeing cell hits, it'll be in an area that's kind of based on where the load of your vehicle operates in. Now, if the weather shifts, that can move up and down based on the temperature. If it gets hotter, it might go down. If it gets colder, it might go up, vice versa. Something to keep in mind. Generally, it's going to go down as the temperature gets warmer. And that's why you'll see the peak of your table, your fuel table, kind of max out here in the middle, and then it'll slope down towards the bottom. Well, the nice thing about that is whenever we go and we start smoothing our tables out, we're going to hit as many cells as we can by driving up and down hills, holding gears, you know, whatever we can do to get a broad range of cell hits, which we've talked about once again on the Maf series, but we'll talk about again whenever we get in there and actually start scanning, doing the data logging. But these areas, you're probably never going to hit. For one, you know, it's going to be so hot that if it's hot enough that you're hitting those areas, your whole center section will be shifted down towards those areas because you're probably not going to hit the cold areas, and vice versa. But because of all that, whenever you're tuning for speed density, you can't just tune one part of the year and expect it to work all parts of the year. Now, a lot of times, this is just going to be open loop, wide open throttle kind of fueling. The rest of the time, your oxygen sensors are going to be at play and your Maf sensor is going to be in there. So you're not going to notice a lot of shifts during the weather changes unless you are on a speed density only tune. So because of that, it is a good idea to, during the seasons, go out, double check your tune, maybe do a scan and make adjustments to your map as it hits the edges of the active area. And same ordeal up here in the corner. This is going to be a load area that you're never going to hit. You know, you might idle down here and you're just going to move up in this direction. You're not going to be able to get down in this corner. So we'll smooth that out to try and make the map look clean. I'll show you what I'm talking about. My map's going to look ugly. The last time that I did a speed density tune, I didn't complete it. I just worried about kind of the section that I needed to be a good tune. And so I didn't do a full tune on that because I knew down here I was going to be running off the Maf sensor because it is a low load range. You're not going to be ever switching out of that or closed loop. So this is kind of your open loop speed density area. This is kind of your closed loop Maf area. Just something to keep in mind. So some other things that we need to talk about is, you know what I forgot to do? throw the disclaimer in. So before we even go a second further, let's go ahead and hit that disclaimer up on tuning. This video is intended for educational purposes only. Improper tuning can cause catastrophic mechanical damage, and you should do your own research before attempting any changes like this to a vehicle. Attempt custom tuning at your own risk. Okay, now that that's over, I've already linked you to the beginning of this. I'm going to throw another link up here that talks about the different types of speed density tuning. Specifically, if you're the old school VE table, which is going to be like pre-2008, maybe some one-offs afterwards. And then after that, you're looking at dynamic airflow, in which we'll be using the virtual VE tables. They're basically the same thing, except one uses a whole bunch of math to generate a VE table. The other one actually has a VE table that you're manipulating directly. But once again, as I said, check out the link on speed density. It goes more in depth. You can learn a lot from that. And it's good to know all that stuff for whenever you get to this stage. We are going to adjust the timing to make the timing a little bit more safer. We'll probably add about 5 degrees on there. I'll show you how to bump some fueling in for the initial runs. That way, if you're adding something new on, you can have some safe fueling in there. If you are going from normally aspirated to boosted, you need to calculate how much fuel you need to add. If you are going from normally aspirated to 14.5 psi, you need to double your fuel and then some, just to be safe. But if you're running 5 psi, maybe, you could probably get away with 30 to 40% fuel add. We want to add the fuel on, we want to go rich and then tune it back down to stoic. We don't ever really want to tune from lean back up. So if you start this process out and you start going lean, make sure you go back, enriching your fuel tables, and then start over. Make sure that you're running rich from the get-go. This is also going to take a lot longer, as I said. This, math tuning, you can be done in a single afternoon. Only takes a couple hours. Speed density tuning, to be done properly, is going to take a few days, possibly even weeks. And then, as I said, you're never really done. You may have to adjust the maps as the seasons change. So just be aware that this is a little more hands-on. That's why this video is going to be a little bit longer than the rest. I highly suggest, though, you watch the entire thing before you do anything, because there's going to be some things that pop up as we go that I've forgotten about because I'm getting older and my brain doesn't work as well, that will, hey, oh yeah, by the way, kind of situation. So go ahead and watch this thing through. I will try and cut down the parts where we're doing the data logging, make those as short as possible, while still making everything clear and concise so you understand what I'm doing it as I'm doing it. But for now, it's time to go ahead and get tuning. I want you to go ahead and save an as found. I've talked about this in the past. I've talked about it in the first video. I talked about it in the math video. Save the as found. That is the file that is what your current tune is on your vehicle. You will save that, and then you will save a copy of that you tune off of. That way we have a reference point to go back to, and it will save us some headaches down the road. You'll see why. But stick around. I'm going to get us fired up, get the truck warmed up, save my own personal as found, and then we will start the next step of the tuning. Okay, here we are. We're in the car. I've got the editor opened up here, and I've got my as found file already saved. So we want to go ahead and do a save as. And as you see, I've got as found and date. You would put your date on there so you know which date that was saved. I'm going to go ahead and call this one SD Tune Step 1 because this is our first step. You'll also see that I have my notebook open. This is where I track any of the changes that I make. As I said, I do an overall idea of what I need to do so I can go back and change certain things after the tune's done. First things first, we're not doing flex fuel. If you're doing flex fuel, you can still do the same thing. You adjust any of your flex fuel parameters through your stored AFR. So don't worry about that. We are doing non-DOD. So if you have displacement on demand on still and you're trying to make power, get rid of it. Be done with it. Don't ever turn it back on. Just disable it. It's right here. We do want to come in here and we do want to disable deceleration fuel cutoff. So what I like to do is come in here and say that we're an engine. We are under fuel and cut off DFCO, disable DFCO. We come back to here. The enable RPM is at 9,800. I'm going to bump that thing up to 2,100. So we will never be enabled. Now I'm going to lower us down to 1. So anything between 1 and 8,100, no deceleration fuel cutoff. Same ordeal. We want to come into catalyst over temp, and we want to disable COT. So I will make a note. Engine fuel temp control COT disabled. That's a good one to do. That's a good one. Okay, the next one is on our you would think open loop, but it's actually underneath oxygen sensors. We want to disable closed loop, and in order to do that, we're going to set our O2 readiness voltage to negative 1795. So we're just adding a negative. That will make sure that we stay in open loop the whole time, and that keeps the oxygen sensors from adjusting any of our fueling. So we're in engine, fuel, oxy sensors, O2 readiness. That will be one that we want to re-enable when we're all said and done. Okay, after that, we're basically pretty good. If you are running one of the older vehicles, 2008 or prior, you are going to probably have a tab in here for fueling where your VE table is. Since this is a dynamic airflow vehicle, there's not going to be a VE table. In fact, I'll show you if you come down into here into dynamic. This is basically all the coefficients that I was talking about. These numbers are what translates into the VE table. But underneath airflow or fuel, it may be under airflow, in fact, where this dynamic tab would be, you will have a VE table, and it will look much like ours. So if you are using one that uses virtual VE, if you come up to edit, you will have a virtual volumetric efficiency button. That will open up your virtual VE table. Under VE mode, we have 4 different options. Manifold switched, open and closed, and then the same with displacement on demand. We do not care about the displacement on demand. The open and close, there's a certain few manifolds, and I'm not sure which ones they are. If you know, comment down below and tell me which cars have these, that has a manifold air switch. For our purposes, for our situation, we will be working on the closed table, and then we will be copying our changes over to the open table. We will come back to this here in a bit. I want to check a couple other things out. Speed density tab. It said this may be where your VE tables are. On the older cars, here it's just more of the coefficients. It's more of this wacky math. If you are running a different size intake manifold, this is where you would change your manifold air volume. So if you're running an MSD or you're running a truck manifold instead of a car, you have to do this to correct your airflow calculations. Probably the same on the older ones. Okay, now we need to go into the engine diagnostics tab, and under airflow on here, we want to fail the Maf sensor. In order to do that, we want to say, okay, our Maf sensor fails if we go over this number. So let's put this to 1. That will fail it. And then let's make sure that we have our low one. We'll go ahead and set it to 0. Shouldn't matter because we will fail instantly by breaking 1 hertz. If you are doing away with your Maf sensor, you might have to play with this high fail until you get your Maf sensor failed. Let's go ahead and document that we failed this because we will be enabling it at the end. So we'll go engine, diagnostics, airflow, Maf, frequency. If you are not re-enabling this, you should be able to see that it is P0103 and 102. You can come over to your DTCs, find those down in the list, and then change them to no error reported and disable SES if they're enabled. Let's see if we can find them. P0102. Here we go. Probably have to do all of these that are mass or volume airflow circuit. You'll learn as you go. Just disable what you can, and as I said, disable SES enable, change these to no error reported. I'm going to leave it as is for now because I am not getting rid of the Maf sensor right now. If you do this and you unplug the Maf sensor and you start getting intake air temp errors or check engine lights, you will know that your intake air temp sensor is in your Maf sensor and that you need that breakout harness. Okay, let's go back over to engine. We're going to go under spark and we're going to hit our advance and our high octane base table. And this is where we want to come in here and take 5 degrees out. So let's just go ahead and select our whole table. And we're going to put -5 in there because we always add. So we are adding -5 to the entire base table. And we will document this one also. Engine, spark, advance, subtract, -5 from base table. This is good to do. You may have already done this if you're following up from the Maf tuning section. If you have, you don't need to do it again. That should keep you safe. But this is something that you want to do to make sure you're not dealing with any kind of knock whenever you're doing your tuning. A lot of times, we don't have dual pulse fuel mode usually. Main spark versus air max, low octane. We should be good just on the high octane, but let's go ahead and do these other tables because it just takes a split second to be safe. We'll add -5 to this one. Okay, done and done. So that should basically cover our basics of what we're looking to do. We should now be, whenever we load this tune, we should be in speed density only. Maf is going to be disabled. Closed loop is going to be disabled. We're going to be in open loops. Now let's go back into our volumetric efficiency table. We want to set up our scanner for our histogram, and we got to do a couple things here. First, see how we're doing pressure ratio? Well, there's a good chance that you may not have pressure ratio as a PID that can be logged, but you'll see that it is MAP divided by barometric pressure. So if we come in here to our PIDs, let's make sure that we have those logged. So we will put in here our MAP, which is going to be in there, intake manifold pressure. It's blue because I've already got it logged. And then barometric. Barometric pressure is not, so let's add that. Barometric pressure is now in there. What we'll do then is go into tools, math parameters, and let's do a new piece of user math. We'll call it pressure ratio. And let's put a new variable in here. We'll put, as I said, if we look, it is MAP divided by barometric. So let's do MAP, intake manifold absolute pressure. Yes. Then we want to add another variable for our barometric. Now we want to divide, so let's go in here and we'll throw the divide sign in there. Good to go. We can save that one as pressure ratio. Now let's open up a new graph. We're going to add the table here. And we want to, our parameter, we want to do EQ error. May just be easier to go down to math down here. Lambda AFR EQ ratio error. And then we can go ahead and relabel this for speed density. And we'll add 2 decimals on there for a little more resolution. Cells hit, we want to start with 5. I like to do 5 initially, then as I get a little bit deeper into it, I'll do 10. That just means that each cell needs to be hit at least 5 times before it starts averaging out your data in there. Okay, so now we won't need to do our column and our row axis. If we switch back over, we'll see that our columns are engine speeds. If you click on it, a box pops up that allows you to do a Control-A, Control-C to copy all of these values. We're going to paste those over into the scanner now. So we want to do RPM. So if we type in RPM here, we get engine RPM. SAE, if it prompts us, we'll say yes, sounds good, tell us what to use, the generic sensor, and then on values, hit Control-V to paste, or you can right-click. Now for our row, same ordeal, we want to come over here, it is our pressure ratio, but we want to copy this, we can right-click, select all, and then right click, copy, or you can do the Control A, Control C. Here on our parameter, we want to use our math parameter that we just created. So come down to the bottom, you'll have user defined. You expand those out. Oops. Oh, well, I accidentally selected pressure ratio, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. If you expand out the user defined, you will find that I have EQ ratio error. That's something for that I use for math tuning. And then I have pressure ratio. Pressure ratio, same ordeal. Let's paste in the values. There we go. We should have a new speed density table. We can save that in case we ever need to load it back up. We'll call our speed dens. Actually, I meant to save that as selected graph. Speed density.table. And we're done there. We should be good. But now we need to come back over and load in our adjusted tune. To do that, make sure the key is on. We're going to do write vehicle. Do not write the transmission. We don't need to at this point in time. Let's go ahead and write it. Now, as you are tuning and logging, you need to log either your injector duty cycle or injector pulse width. If you have a port... oh, I'm still connected on the scanner. Make sure you're disconnected and then try to write. If you have port injection, which is the older style, the Gen 4 and before, you need to log your duty cycle. Your duty cycle will go up to 100%. Whenever you hit 100%, you have ran out of fuel. You need bigger injectors, auxiliary fueling, meth injection, etc. On the direct injection engines, the Gen 5s and stuff like that, you need to do pulse width. And on pulse width, if you exceed 5.5 milliseconds, you have ran out of the window in which to inject. Generally, your high pressure injectors like that are going to be injecting full bore, but they have a window based on the cam that allows you to inject while the valves are closed on an intake stroke. There's a lot of math that goes behind that. Just know that on a stock cam on most vehicles, if you are exceeding 5.5, you are exceeding your window. So we should be able to go ahead and fire her up now. And I'll connect up and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is a direct injected engine, so I'm logging my pulse width right here. We're at 1.5. That sounds like a lot, figuring that 5.5 is bad, but that's not much, trust me. I had to add meth injection, but as you can see, we're running pretty lean right now, 11.5%, almost 12%. So that means I need to richen this up, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and we can disconnect here, jump back over to our editor and open our VE table. And since I want to be tuning something that is rich, I'm going to select the whole table and I'm going to add 12% fuel. Now you may be asking, why are you running so rich, or lean I should say, whenever you just you're lowering the boost? Well, that's because I didn't tune this area of the math properly last time. That's on me. So add 1.12, multiply by that, that will bump everything 12%. Let's go ahead and copy it. Calculate our coefficients, that changes it over. You won't have a calculate coefficients if you're running the pre-2008 engines. You'll just have these maps. And then on this one, we want to paste over our new values and copy the coefficients. So we've got a new fuel map in there that hopefully will make a little bit rich. So let's go ahead and save it as step 2. I've already got step 2 in there. I'm overriding, but let's turn the vehicle off and let's load this one in and see if that fixes our fueling. Okay, let's fire up the car. We're already looking better. So let's connect up and start logging. Especially, we want to make sure, as I said, our vehicle temp's up to speed. We're good. We're running a little bit rich now. That's where we want to be. So let's go out and log. As I said, whenever you log, you want to make smooth transitions. You don't want any abrupt throttle changes. You know, you want to try and hit as many of these cells as possible. The more that you fill out on these, the better off you're going to be for adjusting your tune. If you need to, you can hold gears, put it down into second, third, you know, run the RPMs up, things like that to get into new cell ranges. but we just want to get as much of this filled out as possible. Now, as I said, there's going to be areas on this map that you are not going to be able to hit. There's just nothing you can do about that, so don't stress out trying. Do what you can do, make gradual changes, and I'm going to shut up and probably fast forward through this because you don't want to see me drive around for 10 minutes. Okay, got some decent data on here. Not as much as I'd normally get, but for the sake of time, this will do for now. Let's go ahead and stop logging. We want to select our whole table here and copy it. We can turn our vehicle off for now. And let's switch back over to the editor. Open up your VE table. Select all. And as I said, we're going to right-click, do paste special, multiply by half. Now we can see all of the cells we hit. You can see I didn't hit a whole lot, but this is a good range to start in. As we get more into the higher RPMs and stuff like that, we'll move out here into the boost. But for now, let's just get our drivability kind of sorted out here. So if we have some big gaps in the area like that, we can come in here and select across. I like to interpolate them. And you can use the smoothing functions in here to kind of get an idea of what they should be. Same ordeal, coming down from these cells that we're not going to hit, we can go ahead and smooth in between the vertical bounds on those and try and keep our map a little bit more uniform. So higher areas, we'll come in here and fill in a couple of these gaps. Same thing, we'll interpolate in between to get good values in there. Should keep things looking pretty good. And we're just going to do this to all this. I'll probably fast forward through a little bit of this so you don't have to sit through the whole thing. But you get the general idea. Whenever we get done, we will copy this over to the other table and load it in and continue our tuning from there.
Okay, that's about all I want to do as far as the interpolating goes on this one. So let's go ahead and select the whole thing, copy it, then we'll calculate if you have to do the calculation. Same ordeal, if you have to paste it over and calculate. So we're going to save this as the next step. That was step 2. Let's go ahead and save as step 3. And we will load this one in. Once again, do not need to load the TCM. Don't bother about that. Write it in. Okay, fire her up. Flip back over to the scanner, get connected back up. We should be a little bit closer to stoic. In fact, we're looking really close right now. And this is where we rinse and repeat. You're going to be doing this a lot. So once again, I'm going to fast forward through this next section. We'll get some more cells logged, and then we will do the wrap up. Okay, I got a couple more wide open pulls on this log. It might be a little bit better, so let's go ahead and stop our scanner here. We can disconnect and let's copy our table over. Let's jump back in and look at it whenever we apply it to our VE table. As you can see, this is just the same thing over and over again. We will right click and paste special, multiply by half. And you can see I got some a wide open throttle pull in there, but that's not really enough data to go off of as far as making adjustments. We can down here a little bit. We can smooth some of this out, interpolate it. Same ordeal here, interpolate this. We're looking a lot better though. We're getting smaller changes. It's incremental, this whole thing. You got to remember, it takes time, small increments. That's how you stay safe. And we'll just kind of apply these here, smooth all this out, make it look good again. Okay, it's good enough for now. Let's go ahead and copy that one, calculate it, and then we'll paste it to the other one and calculate it. And once again, we're going to load it in, we're going to go out, we're going to keep on logging. We're going to do this multiple times until those things fall within 1% plus or minus. then we can go ahead and switch back. Now, I'm going to walk through switching back real quick. And the nice thing about it is that we can go in here and open up our compare file. And let's go ahead and save this one as our next step, step 4. And I'll show you how to restore our settings once we're done. As I said, this will be at the very end after you do a lot more of these logs. But we're going to, open our compare file. We'll do our as found. And then we'll look at here and we'll say, okay, engine fuel, cutoff DFCO. We want to switch this back. So it was 980 and 875. So we'll come in here and put in 980, 875. Consider that one good. Then we'll go down, do the same thing. Temperature control, we want to enable that. Engine fuel oxygen sensors, O2 readiness. We'll take the negative off of there to make it positive again. And then engine diag airflow mass frequency, if we come into here, this is how we put our MAF back in. Mine was at 1599, 9 and 850. Yours might be different. And then last but not least, we could put the spark back in, but we're going to have a timing video coming up here soon, so we'll leave that out for now. And then we'll save that as our speed density tune final. Even though technically you will have done this another 10 times, 15 times, however many times it takes to get it, and then we'll load it in. But for now, let's jump back into the garage and we'll wrap things up.
So that's speed density kind of in a nutshell. I mean, you're probably going to have some questions, so hit up the comments down there. Let me know what I can do to help, what I can do to make things clear. You guys have been great on the feedback so far. And in fact, because of your feedback, I am going to be re-releasing a new MAF tuning video that clarifies some things, up the production value a little bit, and make it just all around more understandable for you guys out there that are using these resources to learn how to tune. So if you're looking for that video right now and it's not showing up, give it a couple days. There will be a new video coming out that goes a little bit more in depth on the MAF tuning side to help streamline the process and make it easy as possible. Coming up after that, we're going to be looking at timing, doing the timing. After we get all of our fueling dialed in, we will get our spark dialed in. And then we will talk about torque if you are on a Gen 5 motor and how torque tuning works, what you need to know to make the most power. This is very critical. There's not a lot of information out there, so you'll definitely want to hit that subscribe button because I'm going to break down how you can make sure you are getting the most power out of your Gen 5 motor. A lot of you aren't, I promise you. And a lot of the tuners out there that might be tuning don't know how to make the most power on these torque motors yet. So I'm going to show you the tips and tricks on how to figure out if you're limiting yourself based off the torque models. Then we might even delve into the transmission. That's not my strong suit, but I can give you a couple tips on how to make things shift a little bit quicker, a little bit better, and you know, how torque management works with all that. But once again, I want to thank you for stopping by. I know this was a long one. Thanks for sticking it out. Hit that thumbs up, man. I really appreciate everybody that does. Hit those comments down there. If you've got any questions, I'll get back to you, I promise. And as always, subscribe. There's more content coming out. We've got some other projects that we're going to be hitting up here in the next couple weeks. You won't want to miss out. And I'm always open. If you got an idea on something that you'd like to see, hit those comments up and let me know what it is. I mean, if it's within my means to do it, I will do it. If not, I will try my best. We'll find out. But as always, I want to thank you for stopping by the garage.